Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Homework Assignment, album homework assignment, I should say. This week, it looks like it's going right back to the first episode. Us three, right? We were on the first episode, I believe.
That's right.
This time, though, it's Mr. Pete Pardo going up against Mr. Rick LaBonte, and they have given each other their albums. Each one exchanged albums that the other one has not heard, sat with it for a week or so. They're coming back. They're going to give their thoughts. Hopefully one of them really hated it, but probably not. This is always a love fest. So we are going to start with Rick. Tell us what album that you got from Pete and give us your thoughts.
Okay. Well, first of all, it was great to be doing this with Pete because being a member of, part of this community that we have and being a cast member as well now, he turned me on to a lot of music. So I kind of want to pay it forward. But here's the task. You see the CDs behind the dude? Like, when am I going to pick that he hasn't heard already? Because we like the same stuff. Almost every time we pick an album favorite, we're usually on the same orbit. And but I wanted to throw in some things that I knew he might like, but maybe just stop following the artist all the way through. And so that's what I did. But ultimately, he was giving me something that I must have heard by now, because we love a lot of these music. And surprisingly enough, he gave me a band that I've heard by name and I've seen some video, but never heard a whole album. So he was pretty excited that he got something to share because we are equal, like a lot of the same music. But what was interesting, I'm a little embarrassed that I never heard this album already because it seemed to be an icon in the prog world. But let me start with this. It's called the Van der Graaf Generator, and it's 1975 God Bluff. Now, like I said, I already knew the title, and that title is cool because I know about the electronic. It's a big ball, and you can put your hand on it, and your hair will stand up, electricity, all the science festival have it. And it's made by the dude that made that. So when I always seen that name, I thought that was pretty cool that they named it. I mean, don't forget, Zeppelin named after the Zeppelin, right? So here we go. And so he turned me on to go check this out. And so when I listen to music, I like to also know where it's coming from, not just geography, but the time. Because, you can't judge an album and you listen to something where technology is a little bit different from today's standard. This is 1975, which is a great decade to be listening to this music. So anyway, I put it on and he sent me the link for YouTube, and they gave you the whole album plus 2 bonus tracks that are available. And what's interesting I found was just like a prog band, there's 4 songs on this whole album. I mean, there's 2 songs per side. So that is already just like, yes.
Epic,
and many other.
Epic.
Yeah, songs. That's pretty short, if you ask me.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of like, all right.
It must have been played on the radio.
Yeah, but, I'm already know what I'm in for by looking at the, maybe the length of the song before digging in. But when you look at the album cover, though, it really wouldn't tell you if it's a real rock record or it's a proggy record. It really is kind of, vague. I don't think it's really that clear about what kind of music that is. It could fit any kind of band. So anyway, you start playing on, and the first song called "The Undercover Man," and it's kind of a slow build-up, and right away, I got to tell you. Just listen to this first song and the second song, which is called Scorch Earth. Both of those songs are my favorite of the album so far. That's the favorite side right off the bat. But what I like about it is that I never heard it before. And right off the bat, I know that it's not accessible for everybody. I mean, it's not for the fainted heart that just want to hear some poppy hit. It's for someone that's a prog fan. And I would argue that if you haven't heard Genesis, Straub or Camel, even some Jethro Tull, you're not ready for this. And I'm not to say they're the same music. It's just in the same camp, but different band altogether. And even the way that the band, how the music is coming out, you got a guitar player with really a keyboard player, singer, And then there's a bass player who plays organ and some bass pedal. And then there's a saxophone flute player, okay, and drummer. So that's your four-piece. The first thing that was going through my brain when I was listening to this is how do they pull this shit off live? That's the first thing I thought, because it's like a lot of stuff going on. What was interesting to learn, which I wouldn't know till a little bit later, till I got into Arrow, and then there's the next song called The Sleepwalker. And on the first listen, I thought, wow, they could really like I felt the first side was lyrically driven because Peter Hamill is the name, I believe. He's the singer and he's very theatrical. Like he's the guy that set the blueprint for Marine Fish, if you ask me. He's kind of the guy that he's just one of those like Ian Anderson, like the Straubs or even Camel. They're so expressionist in the vocal line. Every lyric is it's almost like a theater. You know, it's almost like off Broadway where somebody would just go and act on spoken word and just go. This guy would go, and it's pretty entertaining. Now, mind you, it's not a voice that is going to please everybody. It's more of like a person playing characters and going through, a narrative way of describing what he's trying to describe. I mean, it's still lyrically driven, though the music around it kind of supports everything that this person doing. It kind of reminds me a little bit, but it's different in the way Peter Gabriel had to work on the Lamb album. The music was done before and he had to kind of fit it in. It's different. They fit around the lyric content and the theatrical presentation the singer is going to give. That's what the difference, but it's like that. The sonically, it sounded kind of remind me of that. And I learned that Pat Morin is the one that engineered and produced the record, who would do Robert Plant. Principal Moment, which almost half a decade away. And so I didn't know his body of work. So I'm like, oh, wow. I never knew his previous work before Robert Plant. And so I can hear that it, mixed wise, I want to go in there and kind of remix a few things because it gets muddy and murky a little bit in certain areas, but it's so much is going on. The guy must have a hard time deciding what fader I'm pulling out and what I'm pulling in, because it is bombastic at times, and then it comes down with very dynamic. It's got a lot of dynamic in this music. I like it. I think the drummer is pretty fancy going on. I think the keyboard's awesome. Like I said, I just don't think it's a song I could just recommend, even to some of our pals like on the Hudson Valley Square. They wouldn't dig this, because if they don't dig some of the bands that we talk about in the prog scene, they're not ready for this. It's like that. I always said that question before: you don't feed babies meat and potatoes, you start with pablum or formula. This would be a heavy diet for someone to take in if you're not already into Genesis. But if you're a prog fan and you haven't heard this, it's a must. You have to hear this. And I like Arrow, because then the Arrow is more more about the band jamming more. It wasn't all just lyrical content. The guys get to play. There's other guys in the band, and there's the sax solos and there's flutes all the way through it. And then there's Sleepwalkers. So what's interesting is that when you do listen on YouTube, you also get to hear the bonus track. And depending on what version of this album, they either have what they call the John Pure session or the live version of some of these songs that I was puzzled how they pull that off. And so it's pretty interesting to see how they do it. And yet he dynamically, like as far as the singer goes, it's almost just like the record. I was pretty impressed, actually. So anyway, you might be wondering, okay, Rex, so you obviously, been digging it. Do you buy it? Do you just stream it, or do you forget it? Well, I got it the very next day. I listened on YouTube. I ordered it. And what I got is the good version, because I got 3 discs out of this. I got the original mix, which has got me turned on. But the remix, it's like a new stereo mix, and which is actually better. The very complaint that I had in certain spots for, being 1975, they couldn't separate some of that muddiness of the, so much that frequency. Everybody's robbing the same frequency. They did a good job on the disc 2 remastered version. And then there's disc 3, the DVD, where you get a 5.1 surround. And that's a trip. Wow. Because it's ear candy when you start hearing it all the way around. And if you don't have the mean to do it, you're not going to get it. Because I played on somebody else's system and you only had 2 speakers going, and you miss a lot. It's better off listening to the first or second disc if you didn't have a 5.1 surround. So yeah, thanks, Pete. I dig it. I would like, again, I don't go recommending it to people who wouldn't, you knew me enough to know that I like, and you did pick one that I'm glad to be a part of my collection. I'm kind of embarrassed I never had it already, to be honest.
Well, they're not for everybody. I know plenty of people who just cannot listen to them and can't get into them, but you made it. I mean, I thought your whole analysis of it was pretty spot on, and I think
cool.
You got it. I think it's funny because some like hard rock and metal fans actually like them because their music is so kind of chaotic and angst ridden, and your comparison your statement about how Fish was definitely influenced by Peter Hamill. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, you can see
Rob
it.
Halford's a big fan.
What's that?
Rob Halford's a big fan.
Yeah.
And sometimes I hear in his voice a little bit like he was influenced by them.
Yeah.
So you familiar with this album, Jamie?
Yeah, I have it. You didn't see
you had that album.
Yeah, he was holding it up.
How long did you have it though?
I've had it for about 2 years.
Oh, okay. So
I bought it, but you're making me want to buy it again because I want the surround sound version now.
I'm looking at that reissue and I'm like, I don't have that. Holy crap.
You bought it? Now we're going to buy it again.
There we go. That's good. Share the love. Right on. Well, because I saw you have it, but I was wondering, you've been a fan for a while, because honestly, I've never heard it being talked about until, and unless I look on the Prague magazine and some of the websites that, but nothing here in Detroit or Windsor or Toronto. Honestly.
You would be amazed how I became a fan. It wasn't through Sea of Tranquility.
Okay.
It was through, of all things, Rolling Stone magazine, who they ignore Prague for the most part. But I found like 5 years ago, their list of the best Prague albums ever. And it was the ABCs of Prague, pretty much. But they had Pawn Hearts, Van der Graaf's album.
And that's before this one.
Yeah. So I checked it out and then I bought it, and that was my first one. So if you want to get a second one, I would get Pawn Hearts.
Yeah, I would say Still Life and Pawn Hearts are the next ones to get.
Okay, that's like
those are my 3 favorites.
Trilogy, the famous trilogy, like how Uriah Heep and all those bands. I get those 3 in a row. That's just fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I will definitely take you up on it. Again, it is like, again, it's not for people who's looking for media accessible. If you want to just take a trip and go adventure, spreading the curtains in your mind and let the theater take over, then you'll get into it.
Yeah. I think I always explain them. They're a lot more harsh than Genesis. They're not quite as complex as Yes or Gentle Giant. And they're angrier than Camel, right? I mean, just
by far.
They're
a lot of
totally
drama.
Unique thing. Yeah,
so much drama in their music.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
All right. I'm very curious to see what you got, Pete.
All right. So Rick gave me a terrific assignment here. And Rick obviously listens very carefully to things I say and have said on the channel over the years. And he remembered very, very truly that I kind of stopped listening and buying Paul McCartney stuff after Wings broke up. I stayed with Paul for the McCartney 2 album. This is back in the day. Didn't care for it much. And I kind of moved on to other things at the time. I mean, this was very early 80s. And I was just getting and listening to almost nothing but heavy metal and hard rock. And I kind of moved on. I still always loved the Wings stuff and the Beatles stuff. And I've actually grown to love the Beatles much, much more later on in life in more recent years than I did when I was a kid. But I never bothered to go back and start buying and listening to McCartney's solo albums, post McCartney 2, although I've heard all of his big songs on the radio and all that kind of stuff. And I've liked some of it. I've not liked some of it, but I just never, just dove in at all, which is surprising because I love Paul McCartney. So Rick gave me Flaming Pie from 1997, his Capitol Records release here in the US, which I believe, three albums? No, it's been 4 albums after McCartney 2, maybe 5, something like that. I lost count. So I had never heard it. In fact, in listening to it, I don't think I ever heard any song on it at all. By 97, for me, Paul McCartney, when I want to hear Paul McCartney, I throw on, Wings Over America or Band on the Run or, any of those Beatles albums. And that's my Paul McCartney. So it was kind of cool to go and visit, because again, never heard this before, not revisit, a Paul McCartney album from, more recent times, 97, not that long ago. So a lot of songs on the album, very well produced.
Yeah, the 90s.
Yeah, a lot of 90s, right? So, the 75-minute long CDs and a really great sounding record. George Martin and Paul and Jeff Lynne from ELO, a favorite of mine, produced the album. The album sounds really good. I mean, sonically speaking, this album sounds terrific. I took some notes on all the tracks on here because I wanted to really dive into this album and really kind of explain my thoughts and feelings while listening to it. So the song we were singing starts off, first track on the album, reminds me of latter period Beatles. Like we're talking the last, maybe 3 years of the Beatles' life with us. And this is 1997, this album came out. So he was able to kind of hone in on a very special time in the history of music. And I think job well done there. Nice use of acoustic guitars and orchestration. Has a very charming British English, I'll say, UK, whatever you want to call it, but almost like a kind of really naive feel to it. And that reminded me of the old Beatles days. I like it. Like I said, nice layering of instruments, really, really cool. The World Tonight comes up next, and that's much more of a rocker. That's like the first rock tune on the album. And there's a nice mix of styles on here, which I'll get into here. You got all these jangly guitars, which, I'm not always sure who's playing what. I know Paul plays a lot of the instruments on the album, but, Jeff Lynne also contributes guitars. Steve Miller also contributes guitars. Right. I'm not sure if it's them on this song or not. Don't know. Doesn't really matter. Good stuff. Catchy chorus. Again, doesn't sound like something that came from the 90s. And, I've often said, many times how for me a lot of shit that came out in the 90s just had this kind of sound to it that I don't really care for much. This album doesn't have that.
No,
which I kind of like. Yeah, which I appreciate that. Next up is If You Wanna, another good upbeat rocker. You got this great kind of almost haunting vocal from Paul. Acoustic guitar layerings everywhere, and they play off the bigger electric guitar riffs really nicely. Reminds me of classic era Wings. Some really nice stinging guitar leads, electric guitar leads. Reminds me of kind of like Venus and Mars era, because Venus and Mars, Band on the Run, nice layers of acoustic guitars and electric guitars. That's what I kind of get on this one. It's a good track. The first so far, first 3 songs, really, really good. Some Days is up next, all acoustic guitar and strings. Paul with that lovely, youthful voice. I mean, it's 1997. He was, how old at the time? 50, right? Something like that. I mean, guy sounds like he was 20. It's just amazing how his voice is held up. Very Beatles sounding, lovely song. Young Boy, number 5. Here's Jeff Lynne on the album. I mean, he's all over this track. It's got this ELO feel to it. The backing vocals sound straight off an ELO record. Paul's lead vocals are just spot on. Nice little guitar solo. Cool.
And that's done by his son, by the way. His son plays, James McCartney playing a guitar solo in that song.
Gotcha. Okay, nice job. Really good song. I'm a sucker for ELO, and Jeff Lynne is all over this track, so I really like it. What else? Calico Skies, another acoustic piece. Nice finger picking on the guitar on this. Paul's a really good guitar player in addition to everything else he plays, right? And again, I'm not quite sure if that's him or not on the song.
No, it is. And he wrote that during Linda going through cancer.
Okay.
In the doctor room, when he wrote that as he took her photograph that she took. And
very cool.
All in one spot.
And the production on this track is really interesting because and again, I'm listening to this on YouTube, right? He's sounding like he's sitting right next to me with the guitar, just kind of like singing in my ear. Yeah. Pretty cool. I like the production on this album and how every song has like a different feel to it. So that's really cool. Title track Flaming Pie is up next. Kind of old school, kind of rock and roll song, kind of like the Beatles meets Wings with a little bit of ELO thrown in. Got some honky tonk piano, gritty guitars. I like it. Pretty good song. Heaven on a Sunday, laid back, kind of jazzy pop, very calming. Got this nice little vocal from Paul. To me, it sounds like a leftover from like Speed of Sound or London Town.
I was gonna say that it's around that era, eh?
Yeah,
it had that whole sound. Yeah, it does.
I would say it's one of my least favorite songs on the album. It's just really laid back, and it reminds London Town for me. I like London Town, but I remember at the time when that first came out, I was thinking, oh, it's a really kind of mellow, breezy album from them. And I was missing some rockers on that album. But it's still a pretty good song. It's one of my least favorites here. But it's decent, got a good hook on the chorus, nice electric guitar solo, which is cool. Used to Be Bad, here comes Steve Miller, right? So we get a nice little duet on the vocals. Steve obviously on lead guitar all throughout the song. Good blues rock song. Really, really strong tune. Kind of surprising for this album, but hey, blues rock song, if you got Steve Miller, you got to do that. So
I was on the bass and drums, and he done guitar. Steve Miller did play on If You Want It, the second guitar. He did just play guitar, but no singing. He sang in that one, and that's good. You caught it right off the bat, eh?
Yeah. It's a nice little. They trade off on the vocals, which is pretty cool.
Yes, they do.
Next up, Souvenir, kind of like a moody mid-paced rocker. I like the big guitar riffs. There's some cool piano in the song. Paul's vocal is really emotional. It just sounds great. And then you've got this nice like atmospheric electric piano coming in. Again, it reminds me of kind of like the late 60s Beatles with a little like Band on the Run era Wings. Great song. Really enjoyable. Like that a lot.
Like that too. I like how they put the crackling record at the end, just like the old vinyl days, eh?
It's got this vintage sound to it, which he was really going for here. I mean, like I said, it does not sound like a 90s album at all. Little Willows up next. Another kind of laid back, kind of like acoustic pop song. It's nice enough. I'm not a big fan of that song. Another one of my lesser favorites here. Really Love You. Here's where we get different again. This is this big groove laden, funky, soulful rock song. Paul is just singing up a storm. And I love the guitar. There's like all these little guitar, keyboard, and bass licks going on. It's a very busy song, like rhythmically speaking, and the arrangement. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, it reminds me of like Booker T and the MGs meets the Stones. It's like in the pocket. And, I want to hear more of this. I really dug this song a lot. Probably my top 3 or 4 favorite songs on here. Really Love You, really good.
I like the fat bass on it. Almost reminds me of like Let Me Roll It or all those other tunes that he's famous for, like in Hell on Wheels, how he had that big bass sound. He brought it all back. It's like bringing back his old, where the bass is just as powerful as a guitar.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a good, fun song. He's a great bass player. So,
Oh, yeah.
Final 2 tracks, Beautiful Night. Gorgeous pop song as only Paul McCartney could write. I don't know any other way. I mean, just, man, the vocal harmonies, the piano, the strings. I mean, this is the kind of pop grandeur that this guy did all throughout the 70s with Wings. I love the way the song kind of builds and builds. You got the orchestra and the horns and the guitars and all this bombast at the end. It might be the best song on the album. Beautiful Night.
It's one of my favorites, definitely up there.
It's really good. And then Great Day, I mean, we didn't, at the time, maybe not as impactful as now, but this is basically reminds me of the Ram album. This is Paul on acoustic guitar and him and Linda on vocals. It's like 1971 all over again. A really nice mellow track to end the album, but it's just really good to hear her there because, I grew up hearing those two together all the time. And, obviously Linda's not with us anymore. So, cool album. So here are my final thoughts here. Really strong album, a lot of variety on here, lot of hints at past glories, but it still sounds fresh. It's well produced, modern sounding, but crystal clear production. Paul sounds amazing on the whole album, like vocal wise. The musicianship is absolutely spot on. Maybe a few too many songs, you know, a
Those
couple.
two that you mentioned will probably be the 1, 2 that you probably didn't need. Right?
Yeah, and I agree with you. My other comment was like, you know, a couple too many laid back acoustic bass numbers for me. That's just me. But I have the 2022 CD reissue of this sitting in my Amazon cart, along with 5 other McCartney solo albums from this time period that I'm going to order.
Great.
As soon as I get back from vacation. I didn't want to spend $100 on McCartney CDs before I go away on my vacation. I'll wait till I get back because, you know, but it's sitting there in my cart ready to go. So yeah, they will be mine.
Is one of them Memory Almost Full?
No, I didn't go that. No, I have
Off the Ground.
No,
Off the Ground
I have.
Oh, you have to have Off the Ground. Oh my, that's like the album before Flaming Pie. It's almost like having the Revolver before Stars and Pepper. It's a good album too.
I have Tug of War. I have.
Okay.
I have all the ones in the 80s. I have. I added McCartney too because I never got that on CD. And this one, there's like five or something.
Okay, cool.
That's
you already had that.
You already had that one. Came out like 2.5 years ago. This is really good. I was surprised. I couldn't believe I bought it. When I was buying it, I'm like, I'm gonna buy a new Paul McCartney. All right.
You had that one, don't you, Pete? Because I thought you did a review on that one. No. Okay.
Nope.
Okay, good.
McCartney 3 isn't bad. McCartney 3 isn't bad either.
Yeah, I like the one that you just held up. That was pretty good. But Off the Ground, definitely want to get that. I like Tug of War. I mean, even though it has a couple of fillers, because when you bring guests like Stevie Wonder, they're gonna go funky and it's gonna take in a different path. So the album is totally different, but the music quality is great, and that's a good one because George Martin produced that one with that one and Pipe to Peace. And then he went and did a couple of things like Press to Play. He did, you know, the one Flower in the Dirt. Those two are okay. There's some strong moments there. But the ones in the 90s are my favorite right now. Like the one you got, Flaming Pie and Off the Ground. Those two are my favorite since the Wings. Because everything you describe about where the album could fit, you're right on the money. Describing like even the Beatles reference or the Wings reference. That's why I picked that album for you, because I knew that you can appreciate that. And if this was the vinyl days of the 70s, it would be a double album, right? That would be a double album. And like the White Album, you're going to get a couple more acoustics. You're going to get the bombastic tunes. You're going to get jammer. And that's the thing what Paul did there. He kind of made his own little White Album, but in a 90s way, we can do it in a single disc, right? And that's why he's all over the map. It's wonderful to hear that there isn't a style. Like you hear Off the Ground, there is a kind of a feel. The one album you put up, Jamie, that has a feel for the whole album. But this album you talk about, it's like a compilation album, because the songs are different from one to the next. Yeah. There may be a couple that can be grouped together because they're acoustic, but they're all different. And that's what we like about the Beatles and Paul McCartney. He was known to pull out so many different good stuff. You listen to Band on the Run or you know, all the albums that you mentioned, that was his gift, that he could write. He would definitely put an acoustic song, so he does that. Definitely put on a piano song and some rocker, and then whatever modern at the time. And that's why we love Wings Over America, because he put a whole side dedicated to acoustic, a whole side to a piano, and then the grand finale, the rockers, right? Well, this album kind of made me feel like he gave us a little mini segment of all those things.
Yep.
You agree?
I totally
right on.
Yep.
Right on.
Cool.
All right. So it's another love fest.
It is. And I'm glad that he turned me on so many good music. I'm glad that I can do the same gift back.
There you go. There you go.
Right on.
Yep.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoy your vacation, Pete.
Thank you.
Rick, it was great having you here on my show. Actually, I do have something to plug. believe it or not, I got a legit thing to plug. Look at me.
Wow. Let's hear it.
I got like Friday, it might be up tomorrow, but probably be up Friday. Contrarians episode where I defend my favorite Queensryche album, which is not Operation My Crime. That might be their best, highest achievement, but it's not my favorite. So it's me and Marco.
I know what that is. 1990 AD.
He tells me how crazy I am for loving Promised Land. And me and Martin Popoff has something planned up. It'll probably be up early November where I defend my favorite Van Halen album, which is not the first one. It's For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Wow, I'm weird. So those will be
but that's what the Contrarians is all about. I mean, you know, Martin picks some weird stuff too. That's what's cool about that show.
That's what makes that show, right?
Yeah, that's the show. It's called The Contrarians.
That's right.
Right.
So right on.
So Pete, tell the people what you got coming up, if anything. Because you're going on vacation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got vacation coming up obviously on Saturday, but we do have some stuff that has been pre-recorded for the channel while I'm away. So we've got on, let's see. Actually, this episode will be airing while I'm away. So, well, if you're watching this now, I'm actually in Maine right now, enjoying myself, probably eating a lobster roll and having a beer. But we've got in place.
I'm in this room.
Yeah, exactly. In place of the Hudson Valley Squares tomorrow, Monday, will be my interview with Udo Dirk Schneider, former lead vocalist of Accept and currently the leader of the UDO or Udo band. He kept calling it UDO during the whole interview. So I'm like, oh shit, have I been saying the name of his band wrong all these years? Whatever. So that'll be tomorrow night. On Tuesday, instead of in the Prague seat, we will have another listening room from myself where I've got a whole stack of shit that I've been checking out. I'll be showing those off. On Wednesday, there should be 2 new What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility shows, stuff that, again, that I reviewed, pre-recorded. Thursday, Mr. Jamie and myself will be talking about our favorite vampire films of all time on the Monsters Den. And then Friday morning, Martin Popoff and I will be doing another episode of the Funhouse that we recorded this past Friday. That'll be there for you this Friday. And then Sunday, I believe we've got a brand new episode. After I get back, I will be doing album homework assignment with Sean Tonar and Scott Berry. So that's coming up on Sunday. And oh yeah, and each and every day you're going to get your spooky albums for Halloween season. I pre-recorded those, so they will be here every single day for you. So yeah, I've been keeping busy to get you guys content for the whole week. So fear not, there will be Sea of Tranquility stuff all week, even though I will be off in Lobsterville. So
well, I can't believe you rattled all that off just by memory. What you got going on, man.
I'm amazed.
You do not have the olds.
I do have the olds. I don't remember like what kind of iced tea I'm drinking, but I do remember all the shows that I've recorded for this week. So
right on. Well, enjoy your well-deserved vacation. I don't think you ever took a pause. I actually went around the world, Hawaii and UK in a couple of years and followed your show on my trip. And so I've been on vacation and still watch your show. You're entitled to it. So you're gone for a whole week? Just 1 week?
Yep. 7 days.
Enjoy, buddy.
7 days. Thank you.
All right. Well, you want me to close out or you want to close out?
It's all you, man. Do it.
All right. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. All the damn time.
Damn time.
Bye, guys.
Peace out.